Looking for something new in sci-fi or fantasy? Check out what Brandon Sanderson, Orson Scott Card, Nnedi Okorafor, and others chose as the best new stories of the year in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology from 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. Yes, it is that time of year again. There's a show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, UFO Undercover, in the category of entertainment. UFO Undercover brings you some of the most revealing and current research that is being done with respect to alien abductions and contact. Host Joe Montaldo has been an abduction researcher for over 35 years and is uniquely qualified to bring you live interviews with some of the most well-known researchers in ufology. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate UFO Undercover in the category of entertainment. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and get out and vote now.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The Outer Realm in the category of Best Female Hosted Podcast. The Outer Realm is a very popular show hosted by Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, which boasts millions of listeners each week who are well known for and have been complimented on their very laid-back, roundtable style of interviewing. Together, this dynamic duo brings you the best of the best with guests from around the world who are well-versed within their respective fields of ufology, paranormal, esoteric, and other areas of high strangeness, and more. So go to podcastawards.com to nominate The Outer Realm in the category Best Female Hosted Podcast. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and do it now.
You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNtalkradio.com.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me on Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are joining me live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 New Orleans. Today is my 13th episode. So it's my Friday the 13th. I'm celebrating my Friday the 13th. And I'm super excited to have author, stuntman, stunt coordinator, paranormal investigator, all around nice guy, Rick McCallum, to join me today. Thanks for joining me, Rick.
Hi, Kerrilynn.
I was so excited. I mean, stunt coordinator for the Friday the 13th video game. Come on. All the horror movies. This was brilliant. I was so excited about having you coming on today to celebrate my Friday the 13th show.
Yeah, Friday the 13th kind of runs through my life, seeing as my best friend is Kane Hodder, who played Jason 4 times.
Yeah.
But I never worked on any of the Friday the 13th movies.
No, but you did you not? I thought I read that you were like a stunt coordinator for the video game.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, for the video game.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
Is it different than stunt coordinating for a movie? Like how
Yes.
does that, like, is it more intense?
No, it's different because when you do that, you're doing it on motion capture, and they have like 100 cameras. So the main thing a stunt coordinator does is make sure the angle is right when you throw a punch or a kick or something, so it looks like it connects. Well, with 100 angles that they can choose from, it always connects. So it makes it a lot easier. So you just have to have a little bit of vision and creativity to make something look, kind of interesting.
Did it push you in new ways like that you hadn't been open to before, like in a way that you hadn't worked before? Was it that would have been a positive experience to do something new, right?
Oh yeah. Like there was one scene where Kane picks up this lady and just pile drives her head first into the ground.
Right.
Now, you can't do that in real life.
No. We may think it, but don't do it.
Yeah, but what we were able to do is put a couple of crash pads up so that they were, deeper. And because they can adjust wherever, anything in the whole thing with all the computer stuff they've got. Kane just stood there and he slammed her head first in between the two things, and her shoulders hit the pads. So she was safe. And the fact is, too, that because I wasn't wearing any of the balls that they pick up, I could actually go in there and hang on to her, too, and you couldn't see that I was there.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Which makes it really, really good, because sometimes you're doing stuff that's really hard physically, and there's another guy that helped lift and push. And, I'm in a lot of the movie, but you never know. Because like a lot of times when the girl's trying to get up, I'm holding one leg down so she can struggle. It's like, so yeah, it was totally different than a movie. I mean, you got to have it exactly like they want to film it. So the motion capture is pretty cool, except for one thing. I had to put on the motion capture suit, which is all spandex. And I got to tell you, I look like a sack full of doorknobs. I mean,
that may not feel flattering.
Yeah, it was like, oh boy, this is not a good look for me.
Yeah, that's funny. We have our live listeners, and we do have a question that's already coming in. If I could share that with you. Sherry Collins is asking, Rick, is there anything you haven't done with the paranormal?
It's a great question. I'm sure there is, because there's always new stuff in paranormal.
Exactly.
But anything that you might have seen on TV or anything like that, I've done it. I've done this since my hair was black, which was a long time ago.
I have some questions about 13-year-old Rick McCallum.
Yeah, that's when I started. And back then we didn't have any equipment. I mean, we had like a chalkboard and some chalk. We would draw stick figures.
Yeah.
But no, there was no infrared. There was no K2 meters. There was no audio. I mean, you could get audio, but it was like a big box to carry around.
Yeah. So and the field is growing continuously, like stretching and trying new methods all the time. So there's, that's the hope, right? Within the community, that everybody's playing nice in a sandbox. And as a community, we're exploring new ways to gather evidence. And that's the point of it, right?
Well, I have to tell you, I have ghost hunted with a lot of different groups. I'm also a member of Scottish Paranormal, and we do a lot of stuff in Scotland.
Yeah.
Almost everybody that I have ghost hunted has been extraordinarily nice. I mean, I've only ever had words with one person who was trying to perform every place we went, every room we went, and I finally just took him aside. I said, "Knock it off. I'm not going to go."
There's no room for ego, really.
No.
And that's always been a point of contention for me as well too, because I have always been able to see people that are crossed over from the time I was little, and that was where I kind of wanted to start our chat today, if I could, because you're
the boss on this. You can go anywhere you want. I will blindly follow you.
I will lead gently.
There we go.
Your family is very similar to mine. And when I was reading Ghosts Believe in Me and preparing for the show. And so your family is very similar to mine. I was an adult before my family, who was having experiences, shared with me that they too were having experiences. So I was having experiences as a kid and keeping it to myself, because, it's kind of like, it was a secret back then, right? It's like you're secretly watching porn, but you don't want to tell anybody. It's like you don't want to be the weird kid. You don't want to be
paranormal porn. Yes.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Back
Oh, I was
then,
an adult.
yeah, back then, I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you said you were, a ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, whatever you want to call it, all you got was,
Yeah.
right? Now everybody's like, really? Tell me, I want to go. So, I mean,
Everybody's got a ghost story. And I
Yeah,
find that
yeah.
even as being a medium, if I tell people this is what my full-time gig is, they go, oh, I don't believe in that. But I do have a ghost story. When I was a kid, blah, 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 blah. Everybody's got a ghost story.
I get that all the time. People say, do you believe in demons? I said, yes. And they say, really? I said, yeah. I said, do you believe in angels? And they go, yeah. And I said, it's the same story.
Mhm.
If you pay attention, it's the same story. So,
Mhm. But
And by the-
sorry, go ahead.
by the way, I've had many people ask me if I've ever had any demon exposure, and twice. And both times were in my own apartment. And I hear these people say on different shows, and I have people send me a message saying, I think I have a demon in my apartment. And my answer will be, you don't. Because if you don't know for sure, it's not a demon. They are not friendly. They're not nice. They will just run you over like a tsunami if you let them. So,
Yeah. And you shared one of those stories in The Spirits Are Out There. So that was the book that came out in 2022, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know which story that is. I've written so many.
Yeah, that's okay. It's in there, and people should, you can go to Amazon and purchase The Spirits Are Out There. So, if you want to hear more about that or read that story, it is in that book.
There's some very interesting things that have happened to me in my life that were so above the pale. And I'm going to tell you one right now.
Okay.
I was just in Scotland, and I stayed at the University of St. Andrews inside the dorms because in the summertime they rent it out like a hotel.
Yeah.
Now I'm in there and I'm up like on the third floor, and I just lay down to go to bed, and it's very quiet because there's not very many people staying at the hotel. And I lay down, and within a minute, 2 minutes at the most, I heard a woman start to whine and like, ah. Well, my first thought was, well, somebody's next door and they're having more fun than I am.
The university.
Right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it went as scary and terrifying as you can imagine. It just went to the point where I was convinced whatever spirit was tortured and murdered, because the scream that came out of that person, that spirit. I mean, I got up, I was grabbing my equipment, I was trying to communicate, and I got nothing. And I tried the next night and got nothing, but that is going to stick forever, that scream, because my basic instinct is to protect. And I mean, I jumped out of bed and there was absolutely nothing I could do. So
we've had this conversation, you and I, because my first question to you when you had shared that story with me was, do you feel that, I know that you had asked if they had an experience like that before, and they had told you, they hadn't had that experience in that room before. And it was you were the first person to report that kind of experience in that room. And I asked, and I'm asking you again so that you can share with the people that are listening. Do you feel that the spirits recognize the energy that you're bringing into the space, and they feel comfortable to present themselves to you?
Yeah, and everybody, matter of fact, if you read the foreword to either one of my books, people will both say how spirits just automatically come to me. And I mean, while they're sitting there, like one of the guys who wrote my foreword for the second book, Spirits Believe in Me, was one of the big guys who started Ghosthunters. He started Ghost Mine. He started Mountain Monsters. I mean, this guy is as locked into the paranormal as you can be.
Right.
And he'll just tell you, he says, never seen anything like this, because they come to me all the time. And
isn't he the one that quoted, if Rick is there, the spirits are there?
Yeah. Yes, that was somebody from Scottish Paranormal put that down.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that. And I say all the time that I think spirits go to like energy. And I just heard a girl named Erin Bush describe it as they can see the glow, which I think is just absolutely the perfect answer, that, they can tell, if you're somebody they can confide in, if you're going to help, or, like that. And I know other people that actually have that as well. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it just depends on how you treat them.
Well, and this is true. I just want to share a comment with you, and then I want to go further with that train of thought of how we treat spirits as well too. So Laura Lee is just commenting on your comment about demons, and she's saying, I unfortunately have experience with a demonic entity in my previous home, and I agree with Rick. They are not nice and not as common as TV would have people believe. So
yeah, well, you have to remember that those are TV shows.
Exactly.
And they run on rankings and things like that. And they are out there, right? They're very uncommon. Yeah. But I do think, like in Laura Lee's case, in my case, that they come after the people that are interacting with the other spirits.
Yeah.
That they don't like that.
I did an investigation once, and people were starting to have headaches, feeling sick to their stomach, and the word demon started coming up on the spirit box. But where I was tapping in, I knew it wasn't a demon. It was just a bully. It was just a bully spirit, that just wanted his space back and wanted to scare everybody out of the space. And I have been in places where there is that lower energy, where it's definitely a whole other vibe. Like the hackles on the back of your neck go up. It smells different. The air is different. It's a whole other feel. When you hear that growl too, you know that you're in for something different. It's and it really isn't necessarily as common as what television
shows.
Yes, I'm trying to find the diplomatic way to tread.
Not every place you go on that TV show is there.
No. Demon-like qualities maybe for some people, but not necessarily in spirit.
Well, that's one thing I don't do. I don't badmouth any of the TV shows. I mean, I was in the TV and movie business for 40 years, so
yeah. And everybody's doing the best they can with what they're supposed to be doing, or the expectations are with them.
And
it's just that understanding, right?
A lot of these are just for entertainment value. So,
totally. One of the things. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
After you, please.
Okay, but it's totally taking us in a sideways. I'm going to be a squirrel on Red Bull and go on sideways now. So
I go on more tangents than any person in America, so don't worry about it.
Good. We're going to get on fabulous. One of the things that I loved, there was a lot of things I loved about, which was an award-winning book, Ghosts Believe in Me. So that was 2020, right? The Paranormal Awards for
the Book of the Year.
Book. Yeah, Book of the Year. So was that you started off with John Wayne. That when you were 3 years old, it started off with John Wayne. And that hit me right. Like it was just all the feels. When I first became, I was a single mom really early. My kids were really young when I became a single mom. And our tradition at Christmas was to watch John Wayne movies all day. And so I have this picture of my kids, my three older kids, 2 boys and a girl. My daughter was the youngest of those three. And my oldest boy's got a little, toy gun. My other son's got a rope tied like a lasso, and my daughter's grinning from ear to ear. And it was like, this is how we used to celebrate our Christmas. And those boys, even my daughter, was like jumping off the back of the couch, and they were daredevils from the start. So I understood that story. Like when you said you were 3 and saw John Wayne movie, and away your career started, right? Like
my dad always said after he saw what happened, he goes, I always knew what you were going to do. He says, no doubt. Just so people know, my dad and mom took me to a movie, and there was a thing where a horse and a wagon went off a cliff. So later on that night, because we'd seen a matinee, because I was little, my dad was sitting there, and we lived in a 2-story that had the split stairs. Go down and then you go down another thing. And I had one of those little pedal cars, and they were sitting on the couch watching TV. And he says, I came around the corner just barreling right at the stairs. And he jumped up and tried to catch me, but he didn't. And I went straight down and all the way to the bottom stair, face first, boom, and got 2 black eyes. Right. And he said, I knew right then what he was going to do. So he was right. By the way, right here above me, I actually have an autograph from John Wayne where he's dressed like the guy from The Quiet Man,
Shush.
which is my favorite movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah. It's actually a gift. It's a gift from my evil stepmother.
Who's not so evil?
No, she's one of my best friends. That's why I can call her my evil stepmother.
And again, you know, one of the things, and I was totally, kind of got Twitter-pated that you were coming on the show today, because one of the ways that I wanted to introduce you was like the hero with no cape, because you even saved your brother Cash, like that whole story with the Great Danes and swimming, right? Like it's happened more than once. Like I think that your light has been shining since the time that you were a little kid, and those spirits recognized it from the time that you were little to now.
Well, there's also more to it, I think. And I've been talking to a friend of mine, Kat Hobson. You might know her. She's got her own podcast. And we're great friends. And
she's in your book as well, too. Like she's got some stories in your book as well, too.
Many times.
Yeah.
I was in Edinburgh. And I've had 6 knee operations, and I need a knee replacement. So sometimes it's a little hard for me to get around at full speed. Let's put it that way. Right. And my knees were just killing me, because when you go to Scotland, you walk everywhere, upstairs, up hills, everywhere. And I was out all day. So I was walking back, and there's this one set of stairs I like to climb, which is really steep, and there's a lot of them. And my knees felt so bad. Like when I tried to stand up from where I was eating, it took some time. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go do those stairs just to piss off whoever's making my legs feel bad. So I went up and I said, I'm going to see how fast I could do it. So I timed myself. I went up all these stairs in 1 minute and 47 seconds. I thought, that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to walk down. And I almost always avoid walking down the stairs, because that's when your knees will buckle. And I walked down the stairs, and this is the reason I'm telling this story. Isn't about me. It's about a connection. Okay. Yeah. I walked out, and I walked probably 30 yards along the side of the street, and there was an intersection, and there were 2 Chinese ladies and a kid about 5 years old, about 10 feet in front of them. And the kid was running right towards me, and I was on the sidewalk, where he should be going. And just as soon as he jumped on the sidewalk, he took a hard left and ran into traffic. And I mean, I was in front of the kid pushing it, not actually physically touching him. I put my hand out in front of him, and he turned around, he ran back, and then I scampered because I didn't want to get hit by cars and stuff. And it just dawned on me, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't done the stairs and loosened my legs up. So I really do think that there are powers that a lot of people don't pay attention to, that said, okay, Rick, you're the only one around here that's going to be able to pull this off. Let's loosen them legs up a little bit.
Yeah. And I truly believe that we're spirit guided way more than what people maybe consciously are aware of. Like, and I see that daily with how sessions unfold for me and the clients that come, because it tends to be a theme for the week. And these are people that are coming, that I'm having sessions internationally with, that wouldn't know each other from different areas in the world, that have the same theme. And it's a theme for the week where, spirit had to have organized those things. Yeah. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, if you feel that your intuition, or that intuitive gut feeling, knowing, sense, has strengthened as you've gotten older and have immersed yourself within the paranormal world. So you had experiences as a kid, like in your mom's home and your dad's home. And then, in the movie world, which is where, Hollywood Ghosthunters evolved from, and then really immersing yourself in it. Do you find that your intuition has strengthened? Do you acknowledge that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, every single interaction you have with a spirit makes you stronger. Yeah. And I don't mean like physically stronger or anything else like that, but it makes you more open and more recognizable to the spirits, I think.
Yeah. It makes your light shine brighter.
Well, what's funny, because I'm like a big guy. I'm 6'4", I weigh 230 pounds, right? Everybody figures that I'm going to go in, I'm going to start being belligerent and provoke, and I do not allow anybody to do that around me.
I love to hear that. Yeah.
You know, and I tell everybody, it's in my book. It said, you know, everybody wants to know how to ghost hunt. I said, well, here's a simple thing. Pretend you walked in your backyard and there was a puppy in your backyard, right?
Yeah.
A lost puppy. I said, now, how would you try and get that puppy? You can't chase it. You're not going to catch it, right? You talk nicely to it. You put your hand out till it comes to you. It's the same thing with ghost hunting, because ghosts don't have to come to you. They don't have to show themselves. They don't have to move anything. They don't have to knock twice, right? They don't have to do any of that stuff unless they want to, right?
Yeah.
So you need to form a bond. I mean, I have actually, there's some places like the LAPD Museum. I used to walk in, and I was there one day with Susan Slaughter, Brandon Alvis, and Kristen Lumen, who were all TV personalities. And they borrowed my equipment. And when I came in, I picked up my K2 meter, which I take everywhere with me.
I was going to ask if you had a favorite go-to. What equipment do you pick up first?
Actually, I'm kind of well known for the K2 meter. Everybody picks on me about it. But I will walk in there, and I picked up my K2 meter, and Brand goes, hey, we used that for 2 days. It didn't go off once. And I said, really? Walter, are you here? And 5 lights. Bam! And he goes, holy crap. I said, yeah. You know, sometimes you make friends with the spirits, you know?
Yeah. And the more that you go to one place, the more comfortable they get with you as well too. Like, I truly believe they'll match energy. If you go in, if your intention is to provoke and have something negative, and that's your intention, that's probably the response you're going to get, or you get nothing. If your response is going in out of respect and curiosity, you know, they're much more welcoming.
One of the things I always say I say, in my book, I think I say it in there, I get my name called out more than any human being, right? And I've got it on tape dozens of times, right? And people say, why do they call your name and not mine? I said, did you see when I first came in? And I said, hi, my name is Rick.
Exactly. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And then I explained the K2 meter that I had in my hand and how it worked and what we could do with it. And then I also say, I also have an audio recorder here. If you want to speak for me and I can hear your voice, you can leave a message for a loved one that's still here, and I'll get it to them. Right. So I've never gotten anybody to give me the message, though, to be honest. But I have gotten them to interact and start talking to me through the recorders. Right.
So I would add yet. You haven't had that happen yet.
Yeah, it will happen. Although I will tell you something, the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen was at Old Paulding Jail. And
where is that?
That's in Ohio.
Okay.
And my friend Kat had been there before and had a really weird experience. So I was there with another one of my friends, Lori, and she and Kat are big friends. And she says, oh, it's too bad Kat couldn't come. I said, well, let's call her, see if the ghosts will talk to her. So we called her, and, you know, I'm holding the K2 meter, and it's answering everything that she's talking about. Right? It was a weird thing. I've never seen anybody could call a spirit on the phone. I mean, I
love it. But that's pushing boundaries too, right? Like that's shifting how you can investigate.
Well, I do like to try and push new things. Yeah. I have a friend named Mikey Thompson who's in my second book.
I know.
One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. But we used to be the kind of in-house ghost hunters for the LAPD Museum before they closed up doing that.
Yeah. That is a lovely chapter that you wrote about him.
Yeah. Well, I kind of grabbed him the very first time I saw him, drug him outside and said, shape up, buddy. You got some, and
that book, if anybody's listening, the chapter about Mikey Thompson is, he's in the first book too, but that chapter that we're talking about specifically is in The Spirits Are Out There. Like it's in the second book. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please.
No, I'm just saying, he was very, very scared, right? Very scared. Something really amazing happened. A dark entity came in and it was making itself very well known and was deciding that it was going to pick on the 16-year-old girl. Well, fortunately, Michelle Vance was there, Michelle Wagner, I think. Yeah, she was there, and we were sitting this way, and Mikey was facing away from where this entity was. And I just told him, I said, there's something mean here. And she goes, yeah, I know. And it's right by the door. I said, yeah, that's where it's at. Right. And Mikey was getting nervous. He goes, it's after somebody. And I said, yes, it is. And he goes, well, who? I said, I don't want to tell. Right. I said, let's just get rid of him. Right. And he said he was so scared. And I didn't blame him, because I just told him there's a nasty entity right behind him. Right.
Yeah.
This is one of his newer times being out there. And it really affected him. So I took him outside and we had a long talk. Right. I said, look, you've got the right feeling for this and stuff, but this is going to happen once in a while. You have to stand up to it. Right. Yeah. And since then, I mean, he's become as good of an investigator as there is. And I mean, Annie's lost like 135 pounds.
Yeah, I read that. And that was something that I wanted to comment about, in how you really do try like supporting the paranormal community and creating those and friendships, lifelong friendships, and creating networks here and overseas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a friendly guy. You know, I will talk to you till the cows come home. I mean, it's just, they'll be like, I gotta go. No, wait, I'm not. I got another story. Come here.
But that's mirroring to people that should be, or could be, shoulda, coulda, woulda, I suppose, is not a good, always not a good train of thought. But we can be that way, and we can have results, and we can create this community that's supporting each other, because there's sometimes a lot of competition out there that it's not effective and doesn't need to be there.
Well, I try to tell him too, and I try to tell everybody, and I'm not picking on Zach Bagans, okay, because I actually was on Ghost Adventures with Zach. I actually
Hotel.
Yeah, I actually ghost hunted a movie. I actually stunt coordinated a fight scene for him in a movie he did. And I think he's a great guy. So I'm not picking on Zach Bagans. I'm only saying that because he's really well known. And I tell people, I said, don't be Zach Bagans. Don't be Chris Fleming. Be you. Okay?
Yeah. No competition.
No, because you're the light that they're going to try and read. And if you're trying to be somebody else, it'll come across as false. So just be yourself, be nice, and see what you get.
And it brings different layers of energy to the space. If everybody is just bringing their own level of integrity and authenticity in who they are and to that investigation, it's just going to add another layer to what potentially can come through.
Sure. And when you've got people that are actually of the same like-mindedness, and I don't mean all robots, I mean, they just there because they like the adventure. They're trying to make a connection. Anybody that's there to try and get evidence, don't do that. Try and make a connection, and then you'll see what comes to you.
I tend to pick places that have a rich historical background and story to them. I love places that have that, history, architecture, that kind of background. I'm always fascinated with.
Well, that's one of the reasons I go to Scotland every year. Scotland has got some of the most amazing places. I mean, Balgony Castle is my favorite place to ghost hunt.
Tell me a story about Balgony Castle.
Oh, Balgony Castle is, well, this is one that happened recently. I was there. My friend Jay and Kathleen were filming this for the Dark Zone, right? And we actually had people keep telling us that there was a spirit in the chapel named David who did not like women and would run them out. And you'd hear him, get out, leave, So we decided, we had a girl named Cheryl with us, that Cheryl should go in and ghost hunt by herself.
That was brave of her.
Yeah, no, she's not afraid of Godzilla. So, I mean,
Good.
And we were right outside the door, standing very close. Well, Jay and Kathleen were also in there filming it. And she did something very smart. She went in and sat on the floor instead of sitting in a chair. So she was in a very non-dominant position, right? Yeah. And if this guy was the bully they said he was, that would be the perfect way to start off, right? So anyway, After about 10 minutes, I went in with my thermal imager and didn't see anything. So I went over and I sat down next to her. And then Mikey Thompson came in, and Gregor Stewart, who's one of the founders of Scottish Paranormal, he came in, and we started asking questions, and he started answering. And then he started answering Cheryl. But he wouldn't talk to Cheryl before we got in there, right? But once we got in there and established a link, he would talk to her and he would talk to us. And the first thing I asked him, I said, if you had a chance to spend some time with Cheryl, what would you do? And the voice comes back, says, love her. And,
Interesting.
you know, I knew the story that he had been deformed, so that he was probably shunned because of his looks.
Right.
And it turned out to be practically Romeo and Juliet. Right. I mean, they connected, you know, Cheryl and him connected, and all of us were asking questions, and he was answering everything.
Yeah, and I've seen that in other locations where a spirit feels super intense and aggressive, but it's really because their intention is not being heard. Like their story isn't being heard. They're not being seen or heard in the way that they're needing to be. And when you have a different approach, it changes the direction of a whole investigation.
Well, you know, I knew when I heard this story about the chapel, and I had been to Balgony Castle many, many times. Right. And the chapel is very active. Matter of fact, we just went back and tried to get David to answer questions that I had Cheryl record for me.
Oh, yeah.
And he did answer a couple. He did answer a couple of questions, but when we were done, this loud growl came from right in the corner, right by us. It was like, roar. And the guy that I was with is people who have ever watched the show Spook Scotland. Ryan is one of I think he's the founder of Scottish Paranormal, and we were the two inside there. But we got some great stuff on the first time. And before we went in, I had told Jay, I said, you know what? I just have the feeling this guy's not mean. He's just lonesome.
Right.
And then when she went in and was nice to him, then all of a sudden they had a bond. Well, now that she's not there anymore, he's back to throwing everybody out again. So.
But mirroring to people, there's a different way to approach that. There's a different way to approach, and hopefully people can learn from that.
Yeah, I asked him too. The last thing I said to him, I said, David, I know I'm not exactly sure because it's been like a year since we did this. I said, I know you like to tell the girls to get out, but I figure you're probably lonely, right? I said, if you're nice to the girls, you might make some more friends. You don't need to throw them out. Interact with them. And I said, can you do that? And he goes, I will. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was very, very, it's actually very sweet. It was like he finally found somebody he could connect with. So that was. And
you facilitated that.
Well, I think we all facilitated that. Jay was kind of running the thing, and I was kind of pushing the people around to where to go and stuff. So it worked out good. It worked out real well. And when you got Jay and Kathleen filming you, it's going to be great. So they're just, they're as professional as anybody. So it was a blast having them do that for us.
So maybe it's not a professional question to ask.
Shoot.
We're going to ask it anyway. When we do investigations, I'm known as the snack lady. I'm all about the snacks. If I'm got to wear an outfit, it's going to have pockets because it's got to be comfortable because there's going to be rocks and snacks in there. So if you have to do you bring snacks on your investigations? Are they salt? Are they salty, savory, sweet? What kind of snacks does Rick McCallum choose?
I don't really take snacks with me.
Shush, not at all. You go on a big investigation and you don't take snacks.
No.
I'm actually horrified.
Well, no, my pockets are usually filled with equipment.
You use carabiners and then you hook them off your belt loop, so then you've still got room. I will teach you the ways.
Well, you know, a lot of the places that I've been to, like especially the last place at Balgony Castle, they had a big. It was actually at a barbecue outside because we were there overnight. So,
oh my gosh, late night meat.
Yeah, and then when we were in the Banshee Labyrinth, they had all kinds of food and snacks sitting around. So
yeah,
other people tend to bring them, and I steal them.
Right. Like I get so exhausted. I am physically and energetically pooped by the time we are done and needing something usually, especially if it's a long late night investigation.
Well, if you really connect too, I mean, that'll wear your butt out faster than anything.
It does.
I mean, I go home and I go, thud.
Crash, right? Yeah. That's what I tell people.
Hopefully I hit the bed. You know.
Yes, being 6'4" and 230 pounds, you want to hit the bed, not the floor.
Yeah, my neighbors would not like it if I slam it.
Well, they would be concerned. I
have to be nice because the girl downstairs is real sweet. She lets me play with her dog.
That's funny. So no sweet, salty, savory, not a particular choice. It's what everybody else.
Well, it'd be Oreos if I had a chance to stuff them in my mouth.
That's what I want to hear. You know, just in case you come up north, if you come to Canada and we, you know, hook you up with some investigations up here, then I know what I need to get you.
Oreos.
Double stuff.
Tillamook mudslide ice cream.
We can make that happen.
Those are my two favorites.
I wanted to ask about, I don't want to say favorite death scene, maybe bloodiest death scene in the movie.
Oh, well, supposedly, now somebody told me this. I don't know if it's actually the case, but I can see it happening. I was in a movie called Hatchet 2. Actually, I was in all four of them because I was stunt doubling Kane. So, and not because Kane can't do it. Kane is an excellent stunt guy. Right. But there's a lot of times when there's first unit and second unit, and because he's playing the title character with the other lead actors, right. Sometimes there's stunts to be done the other time. So I would do those. Right. Not that he couldn't do them. He can do them at least as well as I can. So the second movie, I played a hunter. I was called Silent John, and I think they had Adam and Kane. Adam Green was the director. I think they just called me Silent John so they could shut me up for a while. So anyway, I don't say a word in the entire movie, right? Because I'm just like not a very happy individual, and I'm hunting to kill Victor Crowley. Yes. And Victor Crowley comes into this clearing where I have the comic element, Colton Dunn. He's my partner in this, and he has no idea how to hunt or anything else. And we hear this chainsaw start. And here comes Kane, who's this big mutant monster with an 8-foot long chainsaw, right? And I start blasting him with the shotgun, and he just is walking through it. In the meantime, Colton goes behind me, and he's shooting into the trees and into the ground. He's hiding behind me. And my gun jams, and I'm trying to unjam it. And Kane comes up, and he takes the chainsaw and sticks it between my legs. It goes between Colton's legs, and he lifts both of us up in the air and cuts us in half. Right. Now, well, when they were cutting me in half, Adam Green added something to the movie.
I know, because I've watched it, and then I laughed.
Well,
and other people were horrified that I was laughing.
I didn't know about it.
And we have to be mindful of how we describe what happened.
Well, let's just put it this way. He hit me in a really soft area, and you could see a couple pieces hit the ground.
Bits and bobs.
Yeah, it was like, but it's by far the bloodiest scene you'll ever see in a movie, because they used blood cannons, and I mean they're right in front of us, and this is no lie. I mean, you used Barbasol shaving cream to get the blood off.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to drive home with leather seats with all this stuff on, so they had a shower there, and I was in there, and when I took my clothes off, every single part of me, and I mean every single, between my toes, under my feet, under my arms, was caked with the movie blood. Everywhere, my face, my hair, every single place of my body. I mean, it took like an hour, and I only got about half of it off. Right. So I ran out of 2 cans of Barbasol trying to get it all off. But they do say it's
well done.
Well, they say it's one of the top 10 bloodiest scenes in movie history. So
yeah. It's one of those, like, the reaction I had was, "Ooh," and then I just started laughing. And that's how I respond to it. I mean, and we tend to have the shock reaction first, and then we laugh as the buffer after, right? But
nobody was as shocked as me. I didn't know.
You didn't know the extra piece was being added?
No, he put that in later. And from what I understand is the MPAA was giving him a hard time about giving him a rating.
A rating, yeah.
So he put that in there because they'd say, take that out, so he could leave something else in. And they didn't take it out, so he left it in. And we were at the Egyptian Theater, sold out, packed house for the premiere. And I'm sitting upstairs in the balcony and I'm watching, and all of a sudden, right, here comes
everybody looking at you.
Yeah, and the place goes crazy, and then the objects go lower and they scream louder, and then the objects fall off and hit the ground and they go ballistic. Okay.
Yeah.
And I look over and everybody in the theater is looking at me. I'm like, oh boy.
But when I watch movies like that, they really are my favorite. And it's my thoughts always go to, how much fun was that to think up? How much fun was that to, like, did the vision turn out in the way that they had thought? Like, I'm always thinking that way as well too, and appreciate the amount of time and energy and thought that goes into creating those kind of moments, right?
Well, you watched it. Did it look like we were being chainsawed in half and screaming bloody murder?
Yeah, for sure. For sure it did. And a whole appreciation for everybody for putting yourselves in that position and doing that and how it landed. But my friend definitely looked at me sideways because I laughed after, and they were still underneath their eyes, not wanting to look.
I didn't want to look when I first what? Adam, what did you do to me? I thought we were friends.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Ghost hunting. Let's go back to that. There was a story that I was hoping that you could share with us. Where do I want to go first? But I think I was really fascinated about how many experiences you had as a kid. And then there was that gap of time where, some weird things would happen before that exchange with Kane at Mansfield. So could you take us, like, from the age 13 experiences to Mansfield?
Yeah, well, at 13, my grandfather died in one of those gun cleaning accidents. Mm. And we lived in Chicago, me and my mom. My mom didn't have a lot of money, and her father didn't leave any, and he wanted to be buried in Paducah, Kentucky. So we took a train, we put the casket on the train and rode down to Kentucky from Chicago. When we get there, they take the body over to the funeral home. And first off, we meet a guy there. Now, my grandfather's name was Joe Kelly, right? Nice Irish man. Yeah. Well, we meet his brother, George Volholius, and find out that he is 100% Greek from Sparta.
Wow.
Okay, so actually I have Spartan blood, right? and I'm also
which explains a lot.
Well, I'm also related to a whole bunch of the people in Scotland that were the bruisers and battlers. So I mean, when you got half of your blood is from Braveheart and the Spartan 300, I mean, I never had a chance. But but anyway, we get down there, and first off, we're like really surprised he's not Irish, that he's Greek and lived his whole life in Sparta until he came over to the United States. And we did not have a hotel room. So my mother and I are walking, trying to find a place, right, that we can afford. And we see this one place. It was a 2-story brownstone hotel with, the sign out in front, the flickering neon, it looked like a horror movie, right? Well, we go in there, And my mother says, yeah, can we get a room? And he goes, well, yeah, we've got one left. And she says, how much? And it was cheap. So she goes, okay, we'll take it. And he looks at us and he goes, well, I have to tell you, it's haunted, right? Now, I wasn't close with my grandfather. I only met him twice, right?
Yeah.
And when I hear that I'm going to be staying in a haunted place, I'm 13 years old. I'm like, woohoo! You know, golden
Christmas
ticket to
morning.
Disneyland. Yeah, so I'm all excited. So
Yeah.
we go upstairs, and it's a big thing. It looks like a volleyball court. You know, it's a wooden floor, and it's rectangle. And on each side of the room, the far sides, were rollaway beds. This was not, by the way, the Hilton, right? Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, she gets in her bed, I get in my bed, and then I don't know how much time went by, but I hear her scream. So I sit up and I look over and I see her bed is moving very fast across the floor towards me. And then I realize my bed is moving towards her. And they slammed together in the middle of the room. And we just sat there looking at each other. And then my mother goes, well, I guess the guy downstairs is right.
Oh
so
my gosh.
we tried everything we could think of to debunk this. Now, this is before anybody had even heard of the word debunk. And my mother
I love that. I love that you guys had that train of thought. Like, is there a left brain reason that these things are happening?
Yeah, and we couldn't find it. You know, we did everything. I shoved the bed as hard as I could, and it went about 3 feet.
Okay, so how tall were you at age 13? I mean, you're 6'4" now. Really? At age 13?
Yeah, I was small until I got into high school.
Okay.
When I went in my first year in high school, I was 4'10".
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I grew out of just safety reasons.
I mean, 4'10" is about the average of all of my mom's sisters.
Yeah.
No, not much taller than that.
Yeah. No,
but that experience was, it must have sparked that curiosity from that point on, right? And it's adrenaline. It really is like a dopamine rush when you have those interactions with spirits.
Well, I'll show you what I say to everybody. I said that night,
hooked you.
I was hooked.
Yeah.
But it was pretty interesting. And I also have another theory that because I was an only child, and a lot of time I would be out in the back playing by myself or, you know, stuff like that. My mother would come out, she'd go, who are you talking to? Joey. Right? Who's Joey? Joey's my friend. Right? There's nobody there. Right? So I had an imaginary friend named Joey, and pretty much everybody did when they were kids. They had imaginary friends. If you think back, right? And my feeling is they're not imaginary.
They're not. And I work with a lot. I get it a lot, actually. People emailing and reaching out. And it's really where I call it my coming out of the witchy woo closet. It's coming out of the closet story, was because my kids were also having experiences, and I want them to know that it was normal. I had experiences as a kid, and then I really started working with a lot of children. Like, I used to run summer camps for kids, so these kids who were having experiences could get together and not feel alone in their experiences. Cool. Right? Yeah.
Cool. I've always thought that Joey was really a spirit. Kind of saw that I was by myself and came over to help.
And that you were receptive.
Oh, yeah.
That you were receptive to having that experience. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Neil. Thank you very much for joining us, Neil. If you are just joining us now, you are listening to Spirit Switchboard on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Network, 105.3 and 107.7 New Orleans. And we have on Spirit Switchboard this week, Rick McCallum joining us. For the my Friday the 13th episode. Which I don't know why I was so giddy about it, but it just made me so happy that my 13th episode and I'm on a Friday. It just made me so happy.
That's pretty cool.
Still does. It is. It is really cool. Hellfire Club.
Oh boy.
I know. Oh boy. But it is one of my, like, if I have a bucket list of places that some places that are well known that people go to a lot, I really don't feel pulled to go to. But Hellfire Club is one of those ones that it really piques my curiosity for sure.
Well, you want to go to the one that's in Ireland. There's one in
Yep,
England.
that's Ireland is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, and if you go there, be prepared to climb a mountain because it's up a hill, very steep hill, and it takes a while to get there.
Right.
But we made it up there, and I had just really hurt my knee, so I had like an army of people surrounding me, helping me get up there. So.
Right. That was at Roslyn Forest, right? That's
no, Roslyn Forest is
no. Roslyn Forest is where you hurt your knee, is it not? Where you hurt your knee?
I fell down a hill.
Oh.
I hit a muddy spot, I fell straight down, and my knee just crumpled, and that was that. Fortunately, I had to walk 2.5 miles in the mud out of there, limping like crazy. And it was so funny because I came finally to this place. There were 2 cattle gates, and I had to climb over those with muddy shoes. That was interesting with a bad leg. But then I walked around, and there was a street. I saw a guy in the window doing his dishes. And I just looked up. I said, "Hey, man," and I'm covered in mud. I'm limping. I look like Walking Dead. I'm surprised they didn't shoot me in the head. Right? But
6'4".
Yeah, and I'm stumbling and everything else. And he goes, "Dude, what happened?" I said, "I fell." He said, "Where were you?" And I told him, and he said, "And you walked here?" He said, "That's over 2 miles."
Oh.
And I was like, they didn't have a choice, right? The other one was uphill, and no way I was going to make that in the mud, right?
Yeah.
So he says, I said, "Can I catch a bus to back to Roslyn?" And he goes, "Yeah, but it's a ways out that way." I said, "Okay, thank you." And I start hobbling. And after about 5 minutes, he pulls up next to me, and I've gone about 75 yards. That's, he pulls up and he goes, "Get in." So
Earth Angel.
Huh?
An Earth Angel.
Yes. And he actually drove me right to my hotel where I was staying, which was only like 2 or 3 miles away. But what's so funny is my name is Rick McCallum, and that's the same name as the producer of Star Wars, right? And the guy that actually picked me up, his name was James Cameron. Right? And I told my friend that. He goes, "Yeah, if you guys got killed," he said, "the science fiction and stuff place would just go crazy for about 15 minutes until they found out it wasn't the right guys."
That's funny.
But Jamie was actually into ghost hunting. So the next year I went back, got him, and we went out and ghost hunted the entire battlefields that I had been looking to go on. So me and Jamie and his wife became friends.
Yeah, see, networking. And
Well,
Scottish people are
the guy that saves you.
Right, but Scottish people are welcoming.
Very, very. Scottish people are so nice.
Yes.
I mean, but you also have to remember they're the same people that battled face to face, hand to hand with swords and farming implements to kill the English.
Right. That's why everywhere's haunted.
The Vikings too. I mean, the Scottish people are just inbred tough dudes. Right?
Brutal.
Yeah.
It's survival though.
Well, people don't understand this. They said, "Why do you think Scotland is so haunted?" I said, the people there battled face to face. They could smell what the guy had for lunch as they killed him. Right? I said the battlefields are brutal. The one place that I was looking in Roslyn was the bloodiest battle in the history between the English and the Scottish, and almost nobody knows about it. 30,000.
You have a picture of that. Isn't that a picture in?
Yeah, there's the battlefield was there. Yeah. 30,000 English people came to kill one man, one of the Sinclairs, because he was going to marry the lady that was promised to this other guy. So he sent 30,000 people into Scotland to kill him. And the people
over a lady.
And the people, the monks up on the hill, spotted them and alerted the town. So the town showed up to defend one of the Sinclairs. The Sinclairs were a very big family, and they were known to be very high up in the Knights Templar. Matter of fact, the Sinclairs are the ones who built Roslyn Temple, or Roslyn Chapel. Gotcha. And like 5 or 6, there's many, many rumors and legends and stuff, but they say like 5,000 people showed up to fight the 30,000. And just as they were getting ready to go out to battle, a whole bunch of people on horses came up, like a lot, right? And this guy came up and he goes, "Heard you were going to have a battle," right? And the guy goes, "Oh, well, who are you?" And he goes, "My name's William Wallace." So he's a nice one to show up. And then they said right after them, a whole bunch of guys wearing white tunics and red crosses showed up on their horses. So all of a sudden it was William Wallace and the Knights Templar and the town. And it turned out there was like 8,000 Scottish people. And the only English that survived were the really fast ones, because they just tore them to shreds, because the English made a big mistake. They put their forces like 1.5 miles apart on the corners. So there was like a quarter of their forces were on each corner.
Right.
Well, the Scottish people are not stupid, right? Well, we can run into the middle and have 30,000 people attack us. We can just kill that group over there. Now we'll go kill that group over there. And that's exactly what happened. And as the battle was going on, the monks upstairs, up on the hill, were showing the saltire, which is the Scottish freedom flag,
right?
Spurring them on, and evidently from some signals they were able to point where the bad guys were coming from, and they did. They just wiped out pretty much everybody unless they ran away.
So when you were standing on that land, did it have an energy to it that was palpable, that you could feel?
Did it resonate?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It didn't.
Not at all. We didn't get any voices. We didn't get any K2 hits. We got nothing, and we walked around there for hours. And the final thing in the story, I don't know if you saw what I wrote at the end.
I did.
I said we didn't get anything in there, which just tells me, a different story, right?
Yeah.
They're where they belong. Rest in peace, gentlemen.
Peace. Yeah, they're in peace.
So they had.
So
where they were supposed to go.
I have another question about that, though. Rest in peace for sure. And that's what we all hope, right? Is that those people are in a place where there is ease and peace for them. Do you feel that it could also be a place where they're getting to know you if you go back again? So it's that comfort level where eventually they're going to come out and make the connection. Sometimes it's just watching and observing with somebody's behavior and intention, right?
Yeah. Well, like Walter at the LAPD museum, I go in there. I remember one time we were downstairs, big conference table, and we were having this ghost hunt. We had about 20 people with us, and there were 3 K2 meters, set like 5 feet apart. And I walked in, and this psychic, Melissa St. Hilaire, who's very good psychic, she comes in, she goes, we just got a voice. We think it said Arthur. And I said, probably wasn't Arthur, right? And she goes, yeah, we couldn't tell, but she said, we thought it was Arthur. And I went, Walter, are you here? And all 3 K2 meters went off 5 lights, right? And they're all, whoa! And I said, yeah, that's Walter, right? And I said, me and Walter, we're buddies.
Do you review? Like, do you do all your own review when you're doing investigations? Because like when you investigate for 8 hours, you've got 8 hours of stuff to review.
Yeah, but I'm not really good at reviewing stuff.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. No. I needed to hear that, because it just feels like such a daunting task for me when I have to do review. And sometimes it takes me a couple of, I want to say weeks, but that would be not a truthful answer. Sometimes it takes me a couple of months to come back around to it.
I'll give you 2 quick examples. I had been to what they call the Houdini house up on Laurel Canyon. And Houdini never lived there. He would visit there sometimes, and I guess it just sounds better to say the Houdini house.
Right.
But through, we had ghost hunted through there, and I had my K2 meter out, and Ed, one of my other guys, we go walking through the basement area, and we see this huge shadow go by. Right? I said, come on. And Ed was bigger than me. He was like 300 pounds. Matter of fact, if you saw the guy that got thrown out of the boat and got his face ground off, and that's actually me getting thrown out of the boat for Ed. I doubled Ed.
Okay.
But anyway, we go inside, and I've been walking all day, and I sat down on a futon. I set my K2 meter down and the voice recorder. Ed comes over and he picks up the K2 meter, and he walks into the bathroom. He goes, I'm going to get a base reading, and he's going around. And then he goes, Rick, this thing's going off like crazy, right?
Right.
So I went in there, picked up the voice recorder, went in there, and we actually got thrown out. to be honest, because we finally asked, we were asking, is this who? Is this who? We found out it was probably a miner that was one of the quartz miners on the property before, right? Because we'd asked, you know, are you a miner? It went off. And then we went all the way through all the names again and said, are you the miner? It went off again. And I said, are you okay with us being here? Flatline. And I said, do you want us to leave? 5 lights. I said, I'll tell you what, do it again and we'll leave. Bam, 5 lights. So we start to walk out and we're standing in the other room. We start to talk, you know, wow, did you just see that? That was cool. It goes off 5 lights. I said, all right, we're going. Right. But about a month later, I'm listening to the recordings. And it's one of the most amazing recordings I've got. You hear Ed walk into the bathroom and you hear him say, I'm going to take a bass reading. And then you hear a man's voice go, get back here, punk. And then it goes, no.
That's a big sentence.
Yeah, get back here, punk, and then no. And then the other one was from the birdcage in Tombstone.
Oh,
I'd been in there ghost hunting with just the owner, right? And I went down to the basement where the poker room was and put up my night vision camera. And as I was walking back upstairs to join Billy, I said, did you ever see anybody get killed down here? Right? And no, I said, did you get killed down here? Was the first thing. And then I said, did you kill somebody down here? So I went upstairs and we did the rest of the hunting. By the way, I had 9 pieces of equipment that I had laid around this big place. Every one of them went dead within 45 minutes.
And then did you have something big happen after that? Like where they drain everything and then look out because the wallop is about to happen?
No, actually I just said, you know, all right, I'm out, because he was nice enough to let me in and take me around and everything else. We had a good but I went back and about a month later, I was looking at the video and you hear me and Billy coming downstairs. Now, if you remember, I asked if he'd been killed down there or did he kill somebody. Yeah. Now, most of these, or a lot of the people that lived in Tombstone at that time were actually Mexican citizens, right? So there's a lot of Mexican accents and stuff like that in the town. Right. So I'm listening to this. I'm just watching the video, see if I see anything move. And you hear me say, me and Billy are talking, and then you hear a voice pop in, right? And it has a Hispanic accent. And it says, I had to. Which could only be the answer to, did you kill somebody?
Did you kill somebody?
A couple of years later, I sent Billy a message and said, you got to hear this, right? And I had been getting ready to go down and do a live thing with Tony Rathman and some other people in Arizona. So I actually sent him this and I said, hey, can I get back in there? And I said, I only need like 20, 30 minutes, right? He goes, he says, well, and he knows I live in Hollywood area, right? He goes, well, you'd have to be here in the next 15 minutes because I got half an hour between groups coming in.
Right.
And I said, okay. And he goes, can you get here that fast? I said, open the front door. Because I was standing there. So he let me go down there. He let me go down there.
That was cheeky, Rick. Very cheeky.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of. But anyway, I go down there and I can hear the people upstairs coming. So I'll give you a guess. How long did it take me from the time I asked my first question until he answered me?
Probably immediately.
38 seconds.
Wow.
Right?
They remember us.
What this guy does, and he is very verbal. So anybody out there, here's a tip for you. Go to the poker room and record audio because this guy's very verbal. Because when I got there, when I went back, I said, I was here before and I asked you if you'd ever seen anybody get killed or if you'd ever killed anybody. And you said I had to. I said, have you ever seen anybody get killed down there? And it goes, yes. So those are pretty good. But you know what? I jumped over a question that you asked me about the Hellfire Club.
That's okay. If you'd like to go back there, we can. I'm enjoying the storytelling.
Well, it's a very fascinating story. I got to the Hellfire Club.
In Ireland.
In Ireland, yes. And we slogged up the hill. one of my relatives was a member of the Hellfire Club, John Wilkes. And he's also known as the only one that was ever thrown out of the Hellfire Club because he dressed the baboon up like Satan and turned him loose and scared the hell out of everybody, including the Earl of Sandwich. Believe it or not, that's really his name, the Earl of Sandwich, who took two of the hookers that were there and shoved them in front of him and said, take them, they're bigger sinners. Oh. So he became a laughingstock and then pretty much went after John Wilkes with everything he had. At least that's the story. Right. So anyway, there were some of the Scottish paranormal people had a Frank's box, and your people will know what that is. It's like the spirit box on steroids.
Right.
And I went
originally used for trying to connect with aliens.
Yeah, that's true. And, well, you know, Edison, who built that, actually called it the telephone to the dead, was what he called it. But anyway, I go up there and I said, can I try? And they said, yeah. I said, hi, my name is Rick. I'm from the United States, and I came to see if I can make contact with my relative, John Wilkes. And it says a few words, and then it goes, relative? And they both look up, and I said, yeah, I'm your relative. I'm from the United States. I said, I just wanted to say hi, right? And it goes, hi, Rick. And their jaws drop. It's in the first book. Right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And then I said, all right, now I think I'm really talking to John Wilkes, so I got to know if you're really my relative. Did you really dress a baboon up like Satan and turn him loose into the thing? Because I would do something like that, right? A couple words went, and then the next word was baboon, right? Now, what are the chances in like a 3-minute session that I could get him to say, hi, Rick, relative, and baboon in the same conversation? 0. Right?
Yeah.
So that was very interesting, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's
like, one of the things you would have noticed in my book is if anybody else was around when something really cool happened, I let them put their version of what happened in the book.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, that's about keeping it all kumbaya in the sandbox and appreciating what everybody else contributes and brings to the table when we are in those investigations. Like everybody that's there needs to be there in order for that to happen.
Exactly. I mean, you got to have the right makeup for everything.
Yeah.
But you know, to be honest, and everybody has written a book or a book report or anything, if you're the author, you can write any damn thing you want. Make up stories, hundreds and hundreds of them if you wanted to.
Yeah. Your version of the truth.
But if somebody else is there and they put in their version and it coincides with what you just said, although the girl said it and she got the names backwards, but she had all 3 of the things in it. So it was still.
But there are times, because I know, sometimes stuff happens when we're not even investigating.
Very true.
Very true. Not even investigating. And we have stuff happen here. Not quite as much anymore since my daughter has graduated from doing her master's and when she was coming home from university, the lights in her room, it's like they were getting excited that she was coming home, for the weekend. They knew that she was coming home and they would get excited and the lights would go. So my daughter would come home. She'd go to the threshold of her door to go into her bedroom and she'd go, hi, folks, I'm home for the weekend. Just letting you know I need to rest. There will be no touching me in the middle of the night. There will be no flashing the lights. Like she was like laying down like a dorm room monitor what the rules are. And we have a very heavy dragonfly like wrought iron door knocker because it's an older home that I live in. So no doorbell or anything like that. So I put up this wrought iron door knocker and that will go like knock. And you could go out there and there's nobody on the porch, nobody on the sidewalk. And you can see if people were going to run around to the corner of the house. Like we have some fun stuff that happens in this house for sure.
Yeah.
When we're not doing anything.
Yeah. I've had quite a few things happen in here in my apartment.
I would love to hear about it.
Well, I had my nephew, Gianni, who was 6. And other people that have been in here have said, you have black shadows going all around this thing. I said, I know. I see it all the time. I said, but the good part is every once in a while I see white shadows, so I know the good guys are here, right?
Balances out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were wrestling in the living room, and he's 6. So I'm down on my knees and we're wrestling and I'm tickling him and doing all that stuff. It's, your cranky uncle does, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden, now this kid is like a kid on Red Bull, right? A hyper kid on Red Bull. I mean, he's one of them kids that just so much energy. All of a sudden, he stands up, closes himself up, puts his hands over his crotch, which kids normally do when they're really scared, right? And I just looked at him. I said, Johnny, what's the matter? And he looks at me and he goes, Uncle Rick, a man just walked right behind you, right? I said, where'd he go, Johnny? He said, he walked into the bathroom. I said, all right, I got to go look. And he goes, no, don't go. And I said, Johnny, I have to go if there's somebody in the bathroom, right? And he looks at me and he goes, I'll go with you. So
good. And that's what we want. We want to empower kids when they're having those experiences that they can be in charge of their environment, right?
Look at how I liked it. I had 6-year-old backup muscle, right?
Yeah.
so that was. I've also had the young lady that was the landlord here, because I live in an apartment. She was standing in the living, or no, on the veranda outside, which is actually a walkway, right? So it's like my balcony, right?
Right.
So we're standing out there, and she's talking to me, and my door is open, and she goes, ah! And she runs around the corner. I said, what's the matter? She goes, I just saw a big black shape walk through there. I said, happens all the time, won't bother you, right? So she very timidly comes back, and then she runs away again. Ah! And she was, I saw it again. I'm not coming in that house. I said, okay.
So do you think that it's this little light of mine above your head that's just drawing spirits in? Do you think that it's attachments? Are they coming home with you? Have you had attachments?
Yeah.
No. Not a good place to be in.
Yeah, I don't want to explain this whole thing, but if you could Ghost Believe in Me and read the last thing about what happened at Lepp Castle.
Yeah. And you can find that on Amazon. So.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sell books, and I'll tell you why.
That's okay.
Actually, I want to sell a lot of books because I give the money to St. Jude.
Yes.
So the hospital. So everybody go buy one, and we can actually make a difference. But
exactly.
Yeah, there's so many things that happen to me. It's just, and people have finally, people who ghost hunt with me a lot, they just go, I don't get it, right? And they see it themselves. It's not like I say, oh, this or that. There was one case where I was doing a live thing from the Dodge Phelps Hospital in Arizona, and they were filming it for a live. And I walked down to where it was supposed to be this really nasty man in the very last room in the thing. And as I walked in, something walked through me, right? I'd never had that feeling before, but I felt it go through me, and it had the most evil feel to it. So I turned around, I walked back, and they're playing with a spirit box, which I told them to turn it off because you're not going to get anything in this thing with 3-foot cement walls, right? It's on the border with Mexico, so you're not going to get anything that's in English, right? So this thing's going. So I go down, I said, "There's something just walked right by me," right? And they're still playing around with that stuff. So you see me lean up against the thing, I'm leaning up against the wall, and all of a sudden you see me go. And looked down, and I said, did you guys hear that? No, we didn't hear anything. I said, somebody just yelled my name from the end of the hall, a man's voice. Well, Tony has, he was the keeper of Dodge Phelps Hospital, right?
Okay.
Well, he also has a podcast. And when I was on his podcast, he goes, yeah, do you remember when you heard the scream at Dodge Phelps? And I said, yeah. I said, I asked Jim Martin, he was the guy doing the filming. I said to check, and he said he never heard anything. And he goes, well, it's really interesting because I was filming, and he shows me this thing, and you see my head jerk up and look down, and you hear Rick from the other end of the hall. He goes, I got it. Right? So
that's so brilliant. But again, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just, how it knew my name and stuff like that. Cause I hadn't been up there to say it was my name, but I've had my name called so many times. I mean, I have probably at least a dozen things where you hear my name being called. So,
and why it's, to not feel like you don't capture anything, because if you have all kinds of different equipment and different people there and they are recording or filming or, using equipment from different angles, it may feel like you didn't capture something and just had a personal experience. But it's that review, everybody doing the review, where you find evidence that you didn't even know you captured.
Yeah, when you look up, you're like, whoa, what was that? Like, I got some really good stuff that happened at the Omen house.
Okay, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I've been there.
Have you?
I have my own story. I have my own story. Do you know what? Do you know what? There is a video on YouTube that I'm not scared of much. I've been growled, scratched. I will run towards, the darkest place, and I'm heading towards it. But the one thing that I'm scared of is stairs with no risers.
Yeah.
They make my hands go into a cold sweat. And those steps at David's house, when you go from the main floor down, with the glass walls on both sides, it was not good. It was not good. And when you stand at the top of those steps at David's house, which for those of you who may not know, David's house is in Benedict Canyon on Cielo Drive.
Yes, that's Cielo Drive.
Yes, it is. That Cielo Drive. And that was actually my first experience outside of Canada. Ever. And that's where I landed. Was in that house. It was
a very active place.
Super crazy. And it's layered. It is not just, the story to that street and what happened with the Manson murders. That house in particular is a magnet, and the people that come bring their own level of people. The furniture, the boxing room, the room with the dirt wall. I was getting all kinds of stuff happening. But the video that's on YouTube is really me holding the back of David's shirt, gripping it. And when we get to the top of the steps, because I was so scared, I was taking deep breaths and swearing salty words all the way up because I was so scared. And then I let go of his shirt, and right at his butt, there's this big sweaty handprint, and it's mine because I was so scared going up the steps. But in the meantime, I've had all kinds of people coming through, people that were personally connected to David, people that were connected to the murders that had taken place, and then connected within the Hollywood community of some of the things that David has collected through the years. It is, and that's a house that's always going to give you evidence.
I've been there so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, the Omen House is in one of my books.
Yeah, yes, it is. But tell me a story. Do you have a favorite experience? And his dogs have always been so lovely too.
The problem with that is I'm allergic to dogs except for two. The one that lives downstairs and the one that's at Balgony Castle.
Oh.
So whenever I get a chance to hug on some dogs, that's where I'm at. Right?
Yeah.
No, I've had so many. I'll tell you one that was kind of interesting. There was a whole bunch of us that were there. We were down in the very last floor. And right outside that, he's got a door that goes right outside the stairs. And Robert Pendergraft, who is a famous special effects expert, one of the guys in our group, we're standing there and we hear somebody walking down the stairs. So we open up the door, and these stairs are on the outside, right? We open up the stairs, and there's leaves all over the stairs. And he goes down the stairs and around the corner to see if anybody's down there. And I'm standing there waiting for him. And I hear somebody walking down the stairs behind me on the leaves. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And I turn around and I'm looking, and it walks right up to me, right? And I'm looking up and I went, hi, right? And I heard Robert laughing because he saw and, he'd heard what was going on. So what are you going to do? Hi. Right? But
Yeah.
walked right up to me. But yeah, if you ever look at David Oman's, his evidence section, you'll find a lot of it came from this guy.
I haven't looked at it a lot. I just know that house was it was a fascinating place for me to be able to experience, and I was so grateful that David had invited me down to experience his house. And there was a lot that, and a lot that I was surprised with who came through, right? And at the time I wasn't sure if Darren McGavin actually was one of the people that came through in spirit. Him and
he
his
might
wife.
have lived in that canyon too,
Well, I think he was connected to David's family, and so there was, when you go down onto that main floor across from like where the master bedroom is, there's, and then down further there was yellow furniture. There's yellow leather furniture. That furniture was connected to Darren McGavin.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool. It was totally throwing me for a loop, right? Because at the time, I couldn't remember Darren McGavin's name. All I could think of was, I'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out. That's all I could think of at the time when I was there.
One of my favorite movies. I've seen it 500 times.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't
your eye out.
It's so brilliant. But it was, it was a great experience. And I think that I was there just after, the Ghost Adventures crew were there. So it's been a while. Like
David hates Zach Bagans with a passion.
Well, we don't need, I realize that we don't need to go there. you can regale us with another story, personal story. We can.
Well, I wasn't going to tell you that. I'm just saying he does.
Yes, I'm aware. Yeah.
Everybody's aware. It's not a secret.
No.
But yeah, I like going up there. I'm friends with David.
Yeah, the house is brilliant, and David truly is immersed in the energy at that home.
Well, I think he draws it to himself.
Yeah.
Because he's just like a beacon up there,
Well, and that land is rich, has its own history with First Nations people, and having that exposed wall in that back room is going to bring lots of, like a portal. It's just going to allow all kinds of different energy to come in and out. So I truly believe it's even the people that come are bringing their own energy into the space that gets supercharged when you're there. Like it was the first time I had ever stood in a spot and watched a compass spin in a circle and not even find a true north, right?
Yeah. Well, I tried to do something there. Some of you have seen the Pico House episode that we did.
Yeah.
Nick Groff and I were down in the basement, and I was getting K2 hits on every question, right? Well, about a year later, a group called and asked if we would come ghost hunt with them. And Kane was making a movie, so RA and I went down there.
Yeah.
And I was in the basement.
And for those who don't know who RA is,
RA played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Yes.
But anyway, we go down there, and I'm asking questions and not getting anything at all, not a blip. So it suddenly dawned on me that there was a great big race riot right outside the door where 19 people got killed, right? And what had happened was the Irish cop on the beat got killed by the tong, and the Anglos went after him, and the Mexicans. And I say Mexicans because they were from Mexico, and Mexico was actually, Pio Pico was a Mexican governor, right?
Right.
So that's what they named the house after. But the Mexican people and the American people went after the tong, and they ended up fighting right outside in the alleyway behind the Pico house. Well, it dawned on me all of a sudden. I just turned around and I asked, I said, does anybody here speak Spanish? This girl goes, I do. I said, can you do me a favor? I said, like 10 seconds after I ask a question in English, can you ask it in Spanish? Right? She goes, okay. I'm sitting there, and every question that she asked, got a response on the K2. I would ask nothing. She would ask, there's the answer. So I tried to find somebody, this is also for David's house, that could speak the First Nation language.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
nobody does. I've talked to several people that are big into the Native American culture and, connected. And they said there's nobody that still speaks that. So if there is somebody out there listening, contact me.
Yes.
I need
Yes.
you.
Yes. That's the way to do it. If somebody knows somebody, please reach out.
Well,
That's the way to do it.
You see these ghost hunting shows and they go to Romania and they're talking to a 14th century spirit, right? And they're talking to them in English, right? They're like, and they're saying, yeah, come to the K2 meter. And the 1400s, you think they knew what a K2 meter was?
Yeah. So we have Michelle asking, Rick, is it common for you to see the full body apparitions, or generally the tools will pick up most of your encounters?
Mostly it's the tools, but I have seen a few full body apparitions. One of them was in England, and I was with a group called Anubis Paranormal. As a matter of fact, one of the blurbs on the back of the first book is about this. And we were in a theater, an actual theater, not a movie theater. And we were down underneath the stage where they had all the equipment, so you could pull the curtains and all that stuff. They had a big pipe running crossway through the middle so that you could be on this side, but you couldn't be on the side where there's like 10 feet of opening that had, excuse me, my nose is haunted. And they told us, don't go on that side. Right. So I'm a guest with Anubis, Mandy Fellows, and we're standing there, and I'm right close to the pipe. And I look over and I see a person sideways looking down at either a phone or a K2 meter on the other side of the thing where we're not supposed to be. And I turned around and looked to see who might not be there. And Mandy's looking at me like, right. And I turned back around and there's nobody there. And she goes, "You saw him too, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did. I could have patted him on the head. That's how close he was."
Yeah.
But it was, but I have seen several full body apparitions. I've been doing this for a long time.
Wow.
I've actually been 55 years I've been doing this. So I mean, pretty much I haven't seen.
You saw a lot in your dad's home.
Oh, calamity sakes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, one of the funniest things that happened there was I actually made friends with the spirits, and so did my evil stepmother. Whenever
that does not shock me.
Well, she lived up in Oklahoma. She'd come down to visit my dad before they got married. And whenever she would leave, we would go watch. She would walk outside. She'd go, "Bye, I'll be back." And the lights would go clink, clink. They would say goodbye to her, right?
Yeah.
My brother there one time, he was probably about 14. He was sitting there and we were talking about the ghosts. And he said, I said, me and the ghosts are pals. I said, "You keep messing around, I'll send them after you." Right. So he stands up and he slaps me in the back of the head, right? Not super hard, just right. And he takes off running, and he goes running through the kitchen. Now, Vandy, my evil stepmother's in there cooking, and she's looking and watches him run through the hallway. And he comes running back around again. And I'm standing there and I shag him back towards the dining room, right? And you know how you have that extra dining room chair against the wall?
Yeah.
Right? He goes running this way, and I yelled, "Get him, ghosts!" Right? And he looks back at me, and the chair on the wall jumped out in front of him, fell down in front of him, tripped him, and he went flying and landed face first on the floor and slid right next to Vandy, who was cooking. And Vandy just looked down and went, I guess she was used to us by then, but that was.
And you only need to have one experience. And so did Cash believe after that?
Oh yeah. Cash was very much a believer by the time we left. It was so funny because we would have people come over to visit and stay the night, and we never told them anything about the house. And in the morning we'd be having breakfast and they'd look at us and go, about the house, it's haunted? Yes. I said, "Yeah, we know." Right. So it was very haunted. Very, very haunted.
We have another question for you.
Great. I love questions.
Yes. Contessa Martins is asking, how come only certain people can see spirits? Do you have a theory?
Yeah,
or
I do.
Thought?
You can only see spirits if the spirit wants you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. You know, and a lot of times you're seeing stuff and you're just not recognizing it. I know
you have
so
to
many.
be receptive.
Yeah. I mean, there's some that are probably knocking on your door and you're not paying attention. So
I 100% believe that. Like,
yeah, you got to open yourself
subtle.
up.
Yeah, it will be subtle. They're trying all these little quiet ways, and if you are so busy and not open, you're not going to see it. So sometimes that will amp up until it's like a really big, like loud door slam or something big to get your attention, so that you do start paying attention to the small, subtle stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because you see people go through the process. Right? Yeah. The first couple of, I will tell you one of the best things that I've ever seen ghost hunting. We were doing the LAPD museum, and there was a father-daughter that were there, and the daughter was maybe 14,
right,
at that age, and they were not quite connecting. They were standing next to each other listening, but I could tell there was, like maybe they hadn't seen each other for a long time. They weren't being mean to each other. They were standing near each other, but they weren't really interacting much. Well, when we got to doing the Estes method, which a lot of people know with the earphones and the blackout.
Sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked over at the girl and I said, would you like to try it? Because I was trying to get her involved. And she looks at me, she goes, yeah, would you make sure my dad sees it? And I said, yeah, I'll get him. And he was in another room. So I went and got him, and he's standing there watching. And she had just an awesome Estes thing. I mean, it was so on point.
Who was asking the questions?
Myself and Melissa, St. Hilaire, and Mikey Thompson was asking some. I think Cheryl Plum was asking some. But I mean, it was all of them were right on point about something at the museum and things like that.
Right.
And she actually said, I think this was her, it might have been a different person, but someone there said that night, it said, yes, the blonde being killed. Now, all the Sharon Tate stuff is at that LAPD museum.
Right.
And they said, yes, 2 people are killing her. Right. I'm like, right. And she says, yes, they've got her down on the bed. And I'm like,
oh,
I said, that's not Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
Right. I said, that's Marilyn Monroe. Right. Because a lot of people think 2 guys did her in.
Yes. I do not believe the mainstream story. There is more to it.
I don't either. I believe that she was murdered.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, after she was done, she was getting a little too deep, so I ended the session. Right? Yeah. I kind of watch out for people, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, she got off, and we were telling her, everybody was saying, "Hey, that was great," and everybody's patting her on the back and everything else. And she goes down, and I'm standing there, and her dad wrapped his arms around her, and I heard him whisper. He goes, "I'm so proud of you," and I'm like. That made my day.
Nighttime. All the feels with that, right? Yes. All the feels.
Yeah, but it was so cool.
I think it does. It does have the opportunity to bring people together because it's emotional. And especially if you have not had an experience, but I always ask people if you were voluntold or if you volunteered. Did you volunteer to come out tonight, or were you voluntold to come out? Because you bring in different energy, right? So then reminding people to be open-minded, open-hearted, and just allow themselves to have an experience, and they will. If you allow yourself to have an experience, then you will.
Yeah. If there's an experience to be had. I mean, I have been to some places that were so hyped up about all the activity and had nothing. And then I've gone back to the same building and it just blew up.
Right.
Right. So sometimes.
But different people?
Yeah. Sometimes they want to play. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
I
agree. But I think that we're kind of all like that, right? Like, we don't always want to be the entertainment monkey for somebody.
I'll do it.
Will you? You and your Honda 50.
Yes, my Honda 50. That got me in so much trouble. Got a very sore butt out of that one. I guess I have to tell the people.
Yes, you do. I led you into it.
We lived in Oregon in a place called Sam's Valley, which was super rural, hardly anybody there. I'll tell you how small it was. The elementary school had 2 rooms, 1st through 4th, 5th through 8th. That's how small this area was. But my Honda 50, my dad was having a party out on the front lawn, right? And he was having a barbecue.
How old were you?
I was about 14, maybe. Right. And I decided it'd be a good idea to ride standing up on the seat through the people on my motorcycle, right? For which I received a very sore behind. It's like in my book, I say, I went flying down the stairs of my thing. I received 2 black eyes for my effort. Then I did this and I received sore behind for that one, So I wasn't a wild child, but I like to have fun. Let's put it that way.
Well, it definitely was leading you. I think all of our experiences play a part in our path and purpose, whether we're aware of it in that moment or not. Like every experience we have contributes to what we're meant to do. So that just led you right down to Kane and your stunt career that has been brilliant.
Yeah, fortunately it's over because I'm too damn old to be hitting the ground like I used to.
Yeah, but you filled the void with paranormal paranormal.
Well, I remember I did a movie that had Clint Eastwood was a star, and my friend Buddy Van Horn got me on it. And Buddy introduces me to Clint, right? Not to name drop, but this was just kind of funny. And he looks at me and he goes, and Buddy says, "This is my friend Rick. I've known him a long time, and he's been in the business a long time." And Clint looks at me and he goes, "You've been in the business a long time, have you?" And I looked at him and I went, "Well, this isn't paint." Right? And he kind of smirked, right? And then he goes, "You known Buddy a long time?" I said, "I'm not going to answer that." He goes, "Why not?" I said, and they're like best friends. I said, "Because if I say yes, you might throw me off the set." He just smiled. But he is one of the nicest people, absolutely nicest people that there is. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. We were doing J. Edgar, and me and this Tom Archdeacon was the actor, and I was taking my cue off of him. We're supposed to run around these old-time cars and machine gun these guys, the FBI that's guarding this one gangster who's going to talk, right?
Right.
So they come over, the first AD comes over and says, "Don't shoot the guns anymore. We're running out of ammo. Only shoot when we're on, action." So we're standing there, and all of a sudden we see everybody coming out, and I'm looking at Tom. Tom's looking at me, and we're like, he goes, "I didn't hear anybody call action." I said, "I didn't either." Right. And then we hear, "Cut." We're like, "Oh, crap." We're doing a Clint Eastwood movie. We didn't. So here he comes. And, I'm expecting to get, torn to shreds. Right.
Right.
Clint walks up and he goes, "Why didn't you shoot?" And Tom goes, "We didn't hear anybody say action." He goes, "I don't call action on my movies." And he looked at us, he goes, "Probably should have told you that, huh?" So, it was so nice. Instead of most directors would take that opportunity to rip you to shreds, so everybody else would be paying attention.
Right.
Not him. He's just the nicest dude, And that was my only interaction with him, was those two things. But what a nice guy.
As we're winding down, can you share with the listeners where they can find you on social media, where they can find your books?
Well, both the books, Ghosts Believe in Me and The Spirits Are Out There and They're Waiting for You, which is true,
very true.
are both on Amazon. And if you look under my name, which you can see right here, it'll be under author. Also, if you happen to speak Native American that would work at David Oman's house, or you just want to tell me a story or just say hi, I'm under Rick McCallum on Facebook, Ghosts Believe in Me on Facebook, Hollywood Ghosthunters on Facebook, and I answer all of them. So, and I always like to get mail because I'm single and alone. I don't have a dog.
Well, I say the same thing. Single, and I have a king size bed with 2 dogs that are in it. So it would take an extra special somebody for me to ask my dogs to move to move over and make room. I don't know.
Do you ever see the meme where the guy, the lady says, "Yeah, my dog bit my husband," and he said, it was either him or the dog, right? And then you look over and you see the dog, and it's helping pull this body out of the house.
Yes, I
they're
appreciate
both pulling
that.
together, and the wife's pulling and the dog's pulling.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this Friday the 13th episode with me. It's been a pleasure. It's just been a great pleasure having you here.
Well, I had a great time.
Thank you. I'm glad that you did. So if you have been joining us, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that listened in, joined in on the chat, asked questions. Thank you to UPRN. Thank you to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7.
Hey
Thanks,
there.
everybody, for being here.
It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of politics and news. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program which is not deemed as opinion news. Listen as Joe Montaldo brings to you just the facts from trusted sources which will allow you, the people, to make up your own minds on the various stories being reported on. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate News on the Flip Side in the category of politics and news. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and do it now.
It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast, in 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. For 4 years, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all of the 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and go out and vote now.
Looking for something new in sci-fi or fantasy? Check out what Brandon Sanderson, Orson Scott Card, Nnedi Okorafor, and others chose as the best news stories of the year in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future Anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.